everyone. Welcome to another coffee chat session for my YouTube channel, Data Science with Sam. After a brief pause, I'm bringing another interesting talk that's kind of oriented towards the field of cybersecurity and how data science could help alleviating some of the risk management practices going on in that area. So today I joined by an interesting guest from New Jersey, Benjamin Larson. Hi, Benjamin. Welcome to my show.
Hi, how's it going?
Thank you for joining. So Ben, just for my viewers' benefit, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I'm currently a data science manager with Verizon, which is, if you're not from America, it's a large telecom company. We're probably one of the biggest networks in the country. I'm currently working under the CISO, which is the Cyber Information Security Office. And but as you imagine, we're a very large organization. So I actually work just in what's called the consumer group. So I'm concerned with any cyber threats that affect our customers, our not our business customers, but like, if you our Fios customers, our phone customers, any kind of attacks that may happen to your accounts, that's what we go after with cybersecurity. I currently used to work in risk management with Verizon. I got shifted over here, and I've also, in my past, I've worked in healthcare and finance. I've done like some financial planning, all within the spectrum of data analysis and data science. I've got a PhD in decision science, which I think translates really well into the field of cybersecurity with data science, because with decision science, those aren't familiar, it's a branch of behavioral economics. So we actually study, things like, how the neurons work in the brain, your reward centers, why people make decisions they do. And by studying this, you can also try to figure out what motivations a cyber criminal may have to come after you. So I think it's kind of, because data science is such a big field. I mean, there's people who are just these pure theoretical mathematicians who do things like, they're the ones that are building those facial recognition systems in the auto driving cars. And then you've got the data scientists who are just the financial wizards who go through and they do stuff in Wall Street. Then you've got the advertisers. And what I do, which is, like I say, is decisions, really trying to look at why people think the way they do and how I can put that into a mathematical formula, how I can put human thought into math, which is kind of really cool.
That's great. Fascinating to know. And especially, the rise of the deep learning and the research been going on in that area, that we are still trying to figure out how we can, mimic a system just model after human brain, right? And the kind of the research you did in your PhD career, and also that something you're trying to carry forward in your professional field, is very fascinating, because that's the way I think that's towards. Our future lies within that particular innovative areas, that how quickly we can try to find out how human brain works, and maybe we can try to model our system in that way. So maybe that will safeguard our system from outsiders threat or any sort of help we would get in the fraud analytics area. So that's kind of like literally take me to the first question for today's coffee chat session. So in your opinion, what's the significance of data science in managing risk in cybersecurity area? You already touched upon that a little bit in your intro, but could you please elaborate more on that?
All right, so data science covers a lot of fields within cyber that, we look at the obvious, where we can, once we have a known data set, like we keep in Verizon, if you've hit us for your IP, we track everything you hit us with. So we have known data sets of bad actors. We can build a model that sits there and, and we've built them that when you come on, if you call us, we know you're a possible threat. So it lights up. And that's your standard classifier models we build, which again, hey man, the simple models, if they work, they work. A lot of other stuff I really think is interesting we do is a lot in the field of simulation modeling. So because cyber threat, let's be honest, you can't stop every single one. You're never going to. There's just too much of it. So what you want to do is you want to put your money where the biggest damage will come from, the big operators and things. So we do a lot of simulation modeling. We build models that go out and simulate what an attack would be and what effect it would have across our networks and that kind of thing. And in there, we not only, it's like a war game almost, when I come from the military, that's where you prepare for the attacks, but also we find we find vulnerabilities that way within our simulations we build. We feel like, oh my God, we didn't know that, like simple things like, somebody miscoded a page on our app, on one of our web apps, and you could, if you go directly to that page, you could bypass authentication, and these are the kind of things we find in simulation as we basically we write bots and simulation programs that go out there and try to beat down our doors to see if they can, any way you could possibly get into authentication measures. And it's using these tools basically to hit things that you could, how many humans you'd need to run this all the time. And you can just rerun the system simulation over and over again and get good ideas of what's going on, and then in a lot of the other stuff we work on, we do things like natural language processing. So when you call us, or any company, just keep in mind, you're being recorded. They tell you you're being recorded if you call for tech support, and we actually take your recording and we have a text to speech translator, and that all gets saved up in a Hadoop cluster. And so we'll do is, like, we know bad guys call with scripts. That's a standard, social engineering is still the number one threat to cybersecurity.
Exactly.
Number one threat's a pissed off employee who's going to go in and, wreck your stuff. The second is social engineering. And people may not know this. There's actual call centers in places like in the old Eastern European bloc and Turkey and stuff. That's all they do. They call and they say, hey, I got Sam's here. Sam Day. Does he have I have an American Express. Oh, he doesn't have. Okay. I called. Oh, Sam has a Visa. Okay. Now we know, bam. And they build these data sets. They sell them of all this information on people. So they call in with scripts, and we know some of the scripts, but otherwise we don't. So we use some unsupervised modeling. So some unsupervised machine learning. For those who don't know that, that's where we're looking at data sets that aren't labeled. We don't know this is a bad actor. We don't know this person. We're just looking for patterns and clusters. We do a lot of clustering.
Yeah.
A lot of clustering. And what we do there at that point is we look for phrases that keep popping up. And we're like, hey, is this part of a script? Because we're seeing this run of words appearing as people call in at an abnormal rate. And we put that on our marks. So when you call us, if certain things pop up, if we think you're suspicious, the person you're talking to on the phone from Verizon is going to get something on their screen to say, hey, this guy's, we have these things in place. And this is kind of the stuff we're doing, and which data science allows us to do that. And and that's just the spectrum I work in, because I work consumer. And so our big concern is people authenticating, people trying to fake your network to get a hold of, either your account or get, order stuff on your account. So authentication's our big concern. And so we're always looking for ways people are trying to go around our authentication system. So the simulation modeling, the NLP we're doing with just clustering, and we just build out some basic classifiers. And honestly, for bad guys, if I got good data sets, I'm going to be honest, a simple logistic regression sometimes hits, 85% of them. So it's a good system. I mean, you don't even need to go into deep learning at that point. I can build a quick model and it just goes and it's in production,
Especially as you mentioned that, most of the cases, it's more of like an unsupervised learning, because there is no specific pattern, because you don't know how the hackers is going to try to attack your system in which particular pattern. So it's very difficult to simulate that using a supervised, but maybe sometime we get lucky, as you mentioned. Like sometimes logistic regression model give you more than 85% accuracy, but sometimes that's not the case. So it seems like, what I understand, it's like a continuously evolving area where data science would have a lot of implementation that area, but you literally have to do a lot of trial and error approach to see which one will be more applicable, to find out a particular pattern in fraud analytics, or try to see how you can go around those threats. So that's pretty fascinating. Yeah.
That's part of the thing, is that, it's when we build a model that works and we catch something, we shut it down. We shut that door down. So that model is no longer needed anymore. That's one thing about us, where kind of if we're doing good, our models don't live in production very long, because we find the problem, we shut it down. So we have to build a new problem, because we're dealing with human behavior here. So as we get smarter on what they're doing, they get smarter to hit us back.
That's true. That's true. So that's kind of literally take me to the next question, which is kind of related to that. So, since you just already mentioned about, what kind of a model simulation, or what kind of model you build in your cybersecurity area. So most of the time, what are all the challenges that you faced when you try to drive this kind of data science initiative to help alleviate like fraud analytics or any risk management practice in area. So obviously the main challenges would be to find out the pattern. But what are all is like, do you have any problem with collecting data or in any sort of like metrics that you need to put together before you start building the model?
Okay, so the two of the biggest things and is in the number one, as you mentioned before, one of the biggest challenges, again, everything, the human behavior causes changes to it. So we're always trying to figure out what the next guy's going to do. But the one I want to talk about first is the internal problem. I'm a data scientist brought into cybersecurity. So the cyber guys didn't, I wasn't, let's say, openly armed, embraced by everybody as I came in, because I didn't come up through cybersecurity. I'm a data scientist. So I came in and, when people have been doing something long enough, they have these heuristics in their head. It's these guys, I'm sure when a cop goes to investigate a murder scene, he's got his checklist in his head. These are the steps he's going to follow. And, these heuristic ideas of, well, if we do this, I guarantee we'll catch 80% of these people. So when I come in and basically say, hey, I'm been digging around in your model, I've been digging around in your data, and I'm finding these weird, like, collections of terms people are using. I think this might be a scripted attack. Sometimes they don't, like, oh no, we know about those scripted attacks. That's not one of them. It's just, I had this almost immediate shutdown until we got a couple of successes under our belts and really kind of hit it. Lost my train of thought there for a second. But okay, so we got dealing with the fact that, like, as an outsider, I'm trying to get them to say, hey, listen, I know I'm not a trained cybersecurity specialist. I'm learning as I go, but I do have some other tools that you guys don't have that you can use, and I'm not trying to, and one of the hardest things is with dealing with data is coming in and telling the story and walking that line between saying, hey, listen, you guys aren't doing this right because I found in the data what you're doing is wrong. But trying to say that to them in a nice way so they don't get upset. They don't feel like I'm coming in and telling them they don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't know how to do their job because I found this problem. And the other problem I find is because these are security people are infamously tight-fisted with their data sets. So even though I work in the CISO, getting access to certain data sets, it's like I have to like literally get a VP or a senior vice president to come down and say, give them the access, because they'll just automatically denied access to like most of our Splunk channels thing. And, and in all fairness, I should, we can't really open stuff up. It's a good security practice not to give out data to everybody because, Verizon, we have some government contracts and businesses. We don't want anybody digging around in there. But yes, that's one of the biggest challenges I found as a data scientist going into cybersecurity is that as a data scientist, I want to just look into your data pipelines and just, give me everything. Give me the Splunk feeds. Let me just dig through. I'll find. They don't know. It's almost like university research. I have to come up with a use case first and say, this is what I'm going to be looking for. These are the parameters I'm going to operate within. I will not look at anything outside of this. Can I now have access to this certain data set? I have to write up use cases to get access to certain data, which, and again,
my CISO group, practice, obviously.
Yeah, it's best practice. I work for legal, and CISO, we actually work under legal is who we work under. So I deal with a lot of lawyers. So that I think is one of the biggest challenges. And it's a mindset change coming from, when I was working in finance, they didn't care what I was looking. They loved it when I went fishing and found weird stuff because I would always save them money, but cyber, and that's the other part of being in cyber is, unlike a finance where I can build a model in finance and I can come back and I can tell you, hey, listen, this model saves us $14,000 a month, or I've written a bot that saves us 80 work hours a week. I can financially quantify my job. Cyber, you can't really quantify because if we're doing a good job, nothing happens.
You never know that the model you built will be sustainable in future.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a very evolving world.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, so it's like your daily challenge, it's kind of more mainly to gain access to the data and especially dealing with the cybersecurity expert, which is we're kind of like a subject matter expert in that area. So you literally have to have that, continuous collaboration with them on a day-to-day basis, just to understand and the meaning of the data, maybe, helping them out, simplifying their process of spam detection or fraud, analytics and Yeah. So yeah, that totally makes sense, because that's where I believe data science would come really handy, because as a data scientist we can't expect that we know all kind of business, right? But we can definitely make our subject matter's life easier by implementing certain technique or modeling practices. So I totally relate to that, even some of their work experiences I had in the financial services. So thanks, Ben, for sharing your experience with us. So that's kind of like take me to the last question for this talk. So so now you mentioned about that you've been doing a lot of data science, machine learning work in the cybersecurity world. So what do you think that what's the future lies about taking this implementation of AI and data science to a next advanced level in the cybersecurity area? Like, is it like can we envision a future where we would actually have less human intervention in terms of detecting frauds or cybersecurity threats from a pipeline? Or we will make a model or AI bot to do that for us. So do you envision that way? That's where actually our future is heading now.
One of the things that I envision is not a good thing, is that as AI, as we've seen it, deep fakes and these other things that are getting so good, and they're not, and you don't need a supercomputer to get these now. This stuff, anybody, the code's out there, anybody can do it. I can make a deep fake video of you saying whatever I want you to say, and it'll look like you're doing it. I think as that, as the ability to cloak an identity in such a realistic thing is going to make a challenge for identification, and that's the AI on the bad side, what it's going to do. And it's going to become an actual bigger, more dangerous. I think this at one point it'll be more dangerous than social engineering, because the whole point of social engineering is trying to pretend like you're somebody else. If I can make you look like somebody else and talk like somebody else, my God, that's really faking that you're somebody else. I mean,
it'll get more attention for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to have to get a lot of data science I think is going to be moved towards picking apart things like vocal patterns, picking apart things like, looking at videos and, facial recognition, say, something's not right. This might be a deep fake. Cause I know I've seen where they can actually scan across these deep fakes, and, a good AI system can say, no, this isn't real, and I think that we're going to have to keep building more and more of those to keep building the better bots to attack, like I say, again, when we're dealing with people who are motivated to attack us, we have to deal with new ways to overcome what they're doing. And a lot of these people who are attacking us, these are state actors. I mean, there's countries like North Korea and China that their smartest kids coming out of their universities are getting sucked and recruited into doing this, becoming, cyber criminals, or whatever you want to call it. But so that's my concern. That's why I view AI from the bad side coming in. It's going to make a lot more challenges. From the good side, though, is I'm seeing and reading about a lot of cool stuff out there. Like I was talking to somebody who's saying they're doing a study with your vocal tone. So, the classic, I call up, oh my God, my wife's in the hospital. I can't get into her phone. Can you, give me the access, to cry me a river. But they're studying the vocal tone. So when I call, do I really sound like somebody whose wife's in the hospital, or am I just faking? Am I an actor just trying to, lying? And that's an interesting thing, because those small tonalities you may not pick up as a human, but if we can say, hey, this guy does not sound in distress, his vocal tone does not match the words he's saying. And that's, I think, it's some really cool stuff. And if you can get it streamlined into a pipeline, that's going to change those kind of things. We can do that. If we can do it with voice, then we can do it with facial behavior, those kind of things. I think the facial recognition, that's one thing. It's going to help detect liars.
True.
I mean, we all know the lie detector test isn't real, doesn't work,
it can prevent those scam call crimes, right? That's been going on everywhere, especially when it comes to like elderly abuse. Like, a lot of senior citizens get actually, manhandled by fake calls, right? People calling them from different financial advisor, pretend that they're a financial advisor to scam them and take out money, right? So yeah, that will definitely help like our elderly citizen, senior citizen, I guess, to identify those fake calls.
Yeah. And another, the fake calls, the fake text, all these spam things, they mostly want to lead you to a website.
True.
That collects your credentials. And that's one of the things we're doing now is we go through and we scan for any new domain that's been registered that might have something that looks like Verizon in it. And we look through them and I've got bots I run that look for, does it look like a Verizon site? Is it asking for an email for a password? And as the AI gets better, as we get, better systems, it'll be able to pick apart. I mean, because right now I'm looking for specific words and boxes and phrases. I've seen it better with the recognition systems where you can just say, hey, is it look like I can make it so, just like when you're doing, hey, is there any cats in this picture? Is any of that kind of stuff, as that and the reason that that's a CAPTCHA, the whole CAPTCHA thing where you got to, click on all the boxes that have trucks or something. It's because AI is not really good at faking that right now. It's really not, but it's getting better. And when it can start doing that, yes, it's going to break the CAPTCHA problem, but it's going to allow me to be able to just constantly have a bot that scans the internet looking for anything anybody who stands up a fake looking Verizon site that's looking for our credentials. Because I mean, we get these blasts we get calls all the time. People, hey, I got this text message from somebody, and then we see they have them send us, we see the link, and it takes into a site that looks just like our site, and it's asking for their username and login and stuff because they're trying to hit them. So that I think is the visualization to be able to see the computer vision technology improves, which is getting better. It's getting very impressive. And I think the autonomous driving is doing a lot to drive that, because I think that's the whole, there's a lot of money and a push for that in there. That's going to be one of the big things too, for us to be able to look and to help stop those scams, because we can look for those types of things. I still don't understand, and I have never gotten a clear answer as to why we can't stop all the text scams that are so freaking obvious coming through us. I mean, the bad grammar alone, those are my favorite. I don't know how anybody responds to this one. It's like, I got one the other day from Amazon. Your Amazon account, it was spelled like, AMAZEN account is being disabled. Click on this link. And the link was like, somebody's email address. I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah. But I don't know why but I don't deal with that end at work. So I don't, and
so
clearly it's not just a Verizon problem.
Yeah, I think it's a very universal mobile network problem, because so far I think most of the the network companies, they can only identify a call as a scam likely or not.
Yeah.
So sometimes they usually give you that message. But I think we kind of like made a progress to at least only maybe just to build a logistic regression to classify it as a not scam likely. So I think, but I think still there are a lot of progress need to be made to make sure that those scam likely calls can be filtered down to a granular level. So that will help user to understand whether they're going to pick up the call or just going to ignore it. So yeah, that's very fascinating. I feel like we are still like taking a baby step in that in this particular cybersecurity area. There's still a lot of things to be done, as hackers is not going to stop. They're going to always come up with innovative ideas, and we need to make sure that our data scientists or our AI engineers would come up with a better model, so it will safeguard our system from it. So just to wrap up this this conversation, do you have any advice, professional advice, for any junior data scientist or any AI engineer who would like to get into that cybersecurity field, or the kind of work you've been doing for the last few years, based on that, you'd like to share any advice with our junior data scientists or AI engineers?
Yeah. I'd say the biggest things you want to do if you want to get into this is really start to work with unsupervised data. Start to focus on learning things like because you want to work with NLP. You want to try to get your hands on some, at least learn about some basic picture facial recognition, that kind of stuff. But it's really unstructured data is the majority of what we deal with. I deal with a lot of Splunk logs. I mean, from the network side, if just watching weird network activity, you're going to be dealing with in cyber, like I say, it's social engineering. So you got to deal with what people are saying. You got to deal with weird emails, what these kind of things. And so it's, you want, I'm not saying don't focus or learn, the classifiers, because, I've used them too, but the main thing is to really become comfortable in the area of unsupervised learning, because that's the main thing. Because what we're looking for, because here's the truth, we know about these 10,000 attack vectors that are coming. We know they're there. We can put up walls. We can try to at least protect against them. What we don't know is what the new guy's going to do. And so that's what we're always looking for. The old guy is to stop the, 0-day attack, stop it before it hits, when the first you see this thing. So I would really start to focus on your unstructured, really get into NLP, because that's really a world we're working on, looking at the words people use and choice and the phrasing, because that can really help us with the social engineering. And I would say, if you haven't done it or haven't learned it, great thing about the internet now is you don't have to go back to school. You can learn stuff there. Take some psychology, some look into things like little behavioral economics, a little psychology, because that's one of the biggest things you got to think about is at the end of the day, it's a group of bad operators in another part of the country, or they could be in my own country attacking me. And I'm trying to stop them, but it's a chess game. We're trying to outthink each other. They're looking for holes. So you got to be in that mindset of, hey, where can I find holes? Learn about simulation, learn about how to, there's some, I hate to say the book for dummies thing. There's a great dummies for hacking. It's a great book. And it really, if you're not a cyber expert and you want to learn about just some fundamental ideas to do penetration testing, to do kind of attacks on a system to see if you can find weakness and flaws, that's a great primer book. I mean, it got me started. I read that book and I came up with like 20 programs that I sent off at work and just was like able to find, holes in the system. And it was really cool. I mean, just off that one stupid, for dummies book you can get. But it's just I'd say the mindset is to get into the mindset of you're trying to stop another human being. You're trying to outsmart someone, and you're not always going to win. I mean, that's the truth. And there's a lot more losses than there are wins, unfortunately. But, it's a great field to go into. Your models are not going to live long. Like I said, if you do your job right, your models probably don't live in production very long. So if you're a guy if you're the kind of person who wants to put a model in production and just keep fine tuning and retraining that model, maybe not the field for you. But if you keep constantly building new models, new challenges, it's a great, interesting field to get into, and it's growing. And it's just like everything that bad happens, like with the pandemic, we got some new technology and medicine out of it. With this Ukrainian war, as horrible as that is, what's going on over there, that whole area was a big cyber actor. That whole Romania, the old Eastern Bloc, and now Russia, and we're seeing the attacks from China and Taiwan when they did the attack. I think this is finally waking the government and some companies up here that we need to start investing more money in cyber.
Exactly. Yeah. Because the current geopolitical scenario is, I feel like, a breeding ground for the hackers to easily penetrate a system. That's kind of like
it's our biggest threat. I mean, look what happened to the pipeline when the Russians, our gas pipeline back in Georgia, like a year or two ago. I mean, that was for an entire week. The Atlanta didn't have gas. I mean, that in America, so here we are, United States of America, one of a very important city.
Oil producer.
Gas. Yeah. It was like all from a cyber attack. So, I mean, this is very serious. These are, I think it's a great, interesting field to go into. And I think adding artificial intelligence and data science to it is we're adding another great tool to their toolbox. It's just like, once they figured out DNA testing for detectives, DNA testing didn't suddenly allow detectives to point out, I found the murder. No, but it gave the detectives another tool. So but I would say to everybody's keep in mind, you're walking into their playground. This is cyber. They own this land. So when you walk in, don't walk in like you're I'm going to tell you what to do. No, walk in saying, hey, I have some tools I think may help you. And we'll learn together and we'll, play around with this. And the cool thing is it's still a growing field. It's still not a fully matured field, I don't think, cyber, as far as data science in cyber. So it's kind of still the technical Wild West. You get to experiment. If you really like experimentation and stuff, this is a great field to go into. But keep in mind, you're all, these security people, they're suspicious of all activity for a reason. That's what they're paid to be, so you may not get the open arms embrace when you walk in, but eventually you'll win them over if you can show your usefulness.
Yeah, that's a nice way you actually put it. And going back to the comments you made about just learning a little bit about the cybersecurity and the hacking things, right? It's kind of like reminded me of that phrase that keep your friends close but keep your enemies closer. So you got to actually understand the how a hacker's mindset work. Like if you think in their perspective, you'll be able to build a better model which maybe safeguard against their actions. So yeah, that's it's very informative. I mean, thanks Ben for sharing all these informations and pretty nice opinions about my viewers who would like to take into this cybersecurity field. So that's all for now. So Ben, do you have any question for me or anything you want to be interested to, or we can wrap up this call for now?
Only I want to let people know is number one, from what I've learned in this, turn on two-factor authentication whenever you can and change your passwords often. Don't leave them laying around because it's not a matter if you're going to be a victim. You will be a victim at some point. It's just, how soon. And thanks a lot for having me here.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for your time. And that's a great advice you shared with our viewers. I'm pretty sure people would get more interest in cybersecurity field after listening to this talk. And so thank you, Ben. Thanks for your time. And maybe I'll talk to you next time for a next coffee chat series or something related to maybe deepfake or computer vision or something related to your area of expertise. So thank you.
Cool. Thanks a lot.